Sound of a gentle, persistent buzzing which slowly fades into the background. The words hit me with the force of a physical blow, sucking all the air from the room. Data tampering is a serious offense, Leo. We have no choice but to terminate your employment effective immediately. I looked across the polished mahogany desk, past the HR director's empty gaze, to the man standing by the window, my colleague, my friend, Mark. He just stared out at the city skyline, refusing to meet my eyes. In that single shattering moment, I learned the most important lesson of my life, that the tallest towers can be built on the weakest foundations, and that loyalty, sometimes, is just a word people use before they push you off the edge. This wasn't just the end of my career. It was the ground floor of a whole new life I never asked for, but one I would learn to build from the dirt up. The walk of shame out of that building felt like a mile. Every head that turned, every whisper I imagined, was a nail in the coffin of my old self. When I got home and told my family, the silence was worse than the firing. Then came the judgment. Data tampering? My father scoffed, not even looking up from his newspaper. We knew this environmental research nonsense was a shaky career. You've embarrassed us, Leo. My mother just wrung her hands, talking about what the neighbors would think. They didn't ask if it was true. They didn't offer support. They just saw their own reflection in my failure. A week later, broke and adrift, an old memory sparked. A college elective on apiary science. The hum of the hive, the intricate dance of a community working for a single purpose. An idea, wild and desperate, took root. I'm going to become a beekeeper, I announced at the dinner table. The ridicule was immediate and brutal. Bees? My brother laughed out loud. In the middle of the city? Are you insane? You'll get us all sued. My father just shook his head in disgust. From a scientist to a pest controller, a fitting end. Don't come to me when you fail. That was the real departure. I wasn't just fired from a job. I was exiled from my own family's respect, so I left. I found a tiny, run-down apartment with one saving grace, a flat, tar paper roof. I poured my meager severance into 2 starter hives, a cheap suit, and a smoker. My new life began with the scent of burnt pine needles and the constant, low-level fear of 1,000 tiny stings. The neighbors called me the crazy bee guy. They saw my pursuit as pointless, a hazardous nuisance in their concrete world. They didn't see what I saw. They didn't see the silent, desperate language of the city's few remaining flowers, or the way the bees, against all odds, would find them. This wasn't a hobby. It was an obsession. It was my relentless, solitary pursuit of proving that life could exist, could thrive, where everyone else saw only decay. The first year was brutal. I lost an entire hive to a harsh winter. A complaint from a terrified tenant almost got me evicted. I was fighting against preconceptions, against urban bylaws, against the very nature of a city designed to keep nature out. But then, a small miracle. The struggling community garden 3 blocks away, whose tomato plants were notoriously barren, began to flourish. The woman who ran it, a skeptic at first, brought me a small basket of the most vibrant ruby red tomatoes I'd ever seen. "It's your bees," she said, her eyes wide with wonder. That was the first crack of light. I started meticulously documenting everything, the real data, pollination rates, fruit yields, the increase in biodiversity on the rooftops where I was allowed to place my hives. I partnered with a local school to create a rooftop classroom. The mockery slowly, quietly began to turn into curiosity. As climate change dominated the news and the city choked on its own fumes, my pointless hobby started to look like a solution. I founded a small nonprofit, Urban Bloom. We didn't just keep bees, we used them as the engine for urban ecological restoration. We turned barren, heat-trapping tar roofs into green sanctuaries filled with native wildflowers and vegetable gardens, all pollinated by my bees. The city, which had once sent inspectors to shut me down, was now offering me grants. The ridicule had officially become acclaim. The culmination of it all was an invitation that made my hands tremble. The city was launching the Metropolis Green Roof Initiative, a massive project based on my model. They were dedicating the flagship garden, a sprawling paradise I had designed, on the roof of the new gleaming headquarters of Omnicorp, the most powerful firm in the state. And they wanted me to give the keynote address. Of course my family would be there. My name had been in the papers, a source of confused pride for them now. And as I scanned the guest list, my heart stopped. The head of environmental compliance for Omnicorp, who would be sharing the stage with me, was Mark. I stood at the podium, looking out over a sea of faces. In the third row, I saw them. My father, mouth slightly agape, my mother, clutching her pearls, my brother, looking utterly bewildered. And there, to my right, sat Mark, wearing an expensive suit and a strained political smile. The air was warm, smelling of lavender and thyme, and the gentle hum of my bees was the only music. I didn't speak of betrayal. I didn't speak of false accusations. I spoke of resilience. I spoke of how nature and people can be underestimated. We look at concrete and steel and see permanence, I said, my voice steady. But life is more persistent. A single bee, a single seed, a single idea can transform the most hostile environment into a thriving ecosystem. It's about integrity. The integrity of a system where every part does its job, honestly. You can't fake a harvest. You can't tamper with the data of a blooming flower. As I finished, the mayor stepped forward to unveil a bronze plaque. It read, "The Leo Valerius Rooftop Sanctuary." My family stared, speechless. Then the mayor made one final announcement. This initiative is made possible by a landmark partnership, and as part of their commitment to ethical science, Omnicorp's primary partner, the firm GeoAnalytics, has issued a full public retraction and apology for the wrongful termination of Mr. Valerius 5 years ago. A wave of murmurs went through the crowd. I watched Mark's face collapse. He was trapped on that stage, a monument to my success, forced to applaud the public undoing of his own deceit. The justice wasn't loud or vengeful. It was quiet, green, and alive, buzzing all around him. Later, my father approached me, his eyes filled with a storm of emotions I'd never seen before. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He just looked at the thriving garden, at the city's skyline beyond, at the plaque with our family name on it. He didn't have to say anything. I just smiled, a real smile, free of bitterness. "It's a beautiful view, isn't it?" I said. In that moment, I realized my triumph wasn't for them. It was for me. The sting of their mockery had long since faded, replaced by the deep, resonant hum of a life I had built myself, not on the shifting sands of others' approval, but on the undeniable, buzzing truth of my own purpose.